All right. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Tom O'Connor, president of the San Francisco Firefighters. I'd like to welcome you here to our discussion on net neutrality. Now, net neutrality and firefighting may not be the first combination that comes to mind. However, San Francisco firefighters, just like our colleagues in Santa Clara, we rely on these sophisticated communications networks and depend on the reliability in the most critical of times. When we are working our hardest, we absolutely do not want to have to worry about being able to communicate between vehicles or crews or with dispatch, because that data traffic should flow freely and unimpeded. What we have seen since the federal repeal of net neutrality is that large internet service providers, the ones that enable data connections and the services of our fire trucks and boats, are more than willing to put the public safety and our first responders' safety in jeopardy for their own profits. What Verizon did to Santa Clara Fire in their time of greatest need was unacceptable, and I shudder at the thought of that happening here or anywhere else in California. We used to rely on the federal government to keep the internet an open and consumer-friendly place, but because they have abandoned their responsibilities to protect consumers, it is time for California to step in. We are here to implore the governor to sign Senate Bill 822 and to once again provide Californians the protections they need for everyone from average Californians to our bravest first responders. And with that, I give you State Senator Scott Wiener.
Stand by, Senator.
Thank you, Tom, and I want to thank Firefighters Local 798 as well as California professional firefighters for standing strong for Senate Bill 822 so that we protect net neutrality in California. And you know, this is really about access to an open internet. The internet is not some sort of luxury that you can have or not have and it doesn't matter. The internet is at the heart of 21st century life. It is at the heart of our democracy and people's ability to access information and to organize. It's at the heart of our economy and making sure that we can compete and that we don't just have the big companies, but we have the small businesses and the small companies that are going to become big companies one day. It's at the heart of our healthcare system, and it is at the heart of our public safety system. This is not something that we can do without. It is not a luxury, and we have to protect access to the internet. That is what net neutrality is about, and that is the real tragedy of the federal government abandoning protection of the internet when Donald Trump's Federal Communication Commission repealed all federal net neutrality protections and created a void. And we in California need to step into that void and protect our residents and our businesses, our first responders, our organizers, to protect access to the internet here in California. People sometimes ask, well, what exactly is net neutrality? Net neutrality is really quite simple. Net neutrality means that we as individuals get to decide where we go on the internet as opposed to being told where we're supposed to go on the internet, as opposed to being forced to go only to certain favored websites. It's about we as individuals getting to decide where we get our information on the internet, what news sites, what blogs we go to, as opposed to being told, here are the 3 sites that you're allowed to go to. It's about being able to go shopping on the internet where you want to go and purchase things. It's about being able to use whatever search engine you want to use. And without net neutrality, the big internet service providers have the power to block access to websites, to slow down access to websites. Yeah. I won't say who's making that noise. Without net neutrality protections, internet service providers can completely block our ability to access websites that they don't like or websites that aren't paying them enough money, can control where we go on the internet by having fast lanes and slow lanes, can really just either manipulate or simply dictate where we go on the internet. And that is not good for our democracy, for our economy, or for anything else. And so that's what we're protecting with Senate Bill 822, which reinstates the Obama FCC's net neutrality protections here in California. I want to thank our broad and diverse coalition for standing strong on this bill. elected officials at all levels, labor, small and mid-sized businesses and technology companies, organizations that advocate for low-income people, for communities of color. We have a terrific coalition because this really matters. The bill got bipartisan support and is sitting on Governor Brown's desk. I don't envy the governor. He gets a deluge, a tidal wave of bills that he has to act on. And we are asking the governor to sign Senate Bill 822. And we know that Governor Brown is an incredibly thorough and thoughtful governor, and I believe he will do the right thing and sign this bill. It is now my great honor to present to you someone who has been an indispensable ally in this fight. Nancy Pelosi has been fighting the fight on net neutrality at the federal level, and early on she called me and said, what can I do to help make sure that Senate Bill 822 passes? She has been an active partner, and I am deeply appreciative. So, Leader Nancy Pelosi.
Let us applaud Senator Scott Wiener for his great leadership to make this legislation possible. Thank you, Scott. It was a joy to behold Scott, as a relatively new member of the state Senate, to take up this big cause for the American people. Because while we're talking about legislation in California, it will lead the way in the rest of the country. As Senator Wiener mentioned, he mentioned why this is so necessary. This democratization of the internet that cannot be, the Trump administration has tried to roll back. But actually this California legislation not only restores it, but improves the access. I want to say what an honor it is to be here with Tom O'Connor. I've said it before, our firefighters are our nobility. We owe them everything. They risk their lives for us, and they've been challenged in such an important way lately that every chance I get, I want to salute them. Thank you, Tom. And I want to call to everyone's attention a letter that was sponsored by Congresswoman Anna Eshoo. Just in case you don't know, Anna Eshoo in Washington, D.C. is the queen of net neutrality. She was the focal point, the fighter that got the decisions made that were so important to us that now the Trump administration has reversed. She was the top Democrat on the Internet and Technology Subcommittee of Jurisdiction. But now, she had written in the end of August, she organized a letter expressing serious concerns regarding the declaration filed by the Santa Clara County Fire Chief with the D.C. Circuit that Verizon throttled the unlimited data plan of the Santa Clara County Fire Department as it battled the Mendocino Complex fire, the largest wildfire in the history of California. Throttling directly violates core net neutrality principles. This is where public safety and access to the internet and no throttling involved are so important. And I want to commend Congresswoman Eshoo for her leadership in getting the net neutrality decisions that happened, but also taking to task those who would violate that. Again, it's a privilege to be here with so many leaders, with us, Senator Scott Wiener, who made this day possible, Assemblyman Rob Bonta, Senator Nancy Skinner, Assemblyman David Chu, Halima, who's from Greenlining, and really to join Senator Wiener in acknowledging the grassroots activism with all the maneuvering that we were doing in Washington originally on net neutrality and in California in the course of this legislation. The maneuvering is important. The outside mobilization is essential to its success. But young people and people representing different aspects of our community knew how important this was, acted upon that knowledge, and made the difference. And I just want to further say, but again, I'll associate myself with Senator Wiener's remarks about how important this is in so many ways. But I do want to call attention to our Better Deal, because in it we're talking, in the Better Deal, we talk about a for the people agenda, to have a plan to safeguard the open internet through strong net neutrality protections, to ensure nationwide competitive broadband options for consumers and small businesses, and expand our Benner deal for universal high-speed internet to bring broadband to every neighborhood, school, and farm, closing the urban-rural divide and unlocking the economic potential of every community. And in that regard of the urban-rural divide, I just want to quote a letter from the chair of the Rural Caucus of the California Democratic Party, delivered to me by my daughter Christine, but the letter is from Joy Sperling, the chair of that. And in the letter she said, "This is an area where California should lead, this net neutrality issue. It is embarrassing that you can get high-speed internet in the impenetrable forest in Uganda and not in rural California. The need for expanding rural broadband is irrefutable. What is needed is a sense of urgency coupled with the clout to get the various stakeholders to work together." Well, when the governor signs this bill, and I'm hopeful that he will, on top of the really beautiful effort to pass this legislation, I was thinking of what the appropriate word was. Challenging, uncertain. But anyway, it ended up to be a beautiful effort because it was successful. That means that California will lead the way, not only in perpetuating the democratization of the internet, but also taking it into rural areas, so needed not only in our own state, but in the United States of America. And so now it is I'm going to yield back to Scott, Senator Wiener, who's running the show, as he ran the show to pass this legislation. Pretty soon, I'm sure we'll be able to say, congratulations, California, for leading the way on net neutrality. I yield back.
Thank you, Madam Leader. As I mentioned, we have an amazing coalition. I want to invite up two great advocates who have helped get us this far and really understand why this matters, particularly to communities that are marginalized and that really need access to the internet to survive. I want to invite up Halima Barucha from Greenlining Institute and Jess Bartolo from the Western Center on Law and Poverty.
Hello, everyone. Sorry about that. Thank you for having me. I'm really excited to be here. As a young Muslim, a 19-year-old Muslim woman, net neutrality has really helped me to survive oppression and thrive in a world that often dehumanizes me. My online voice is powerful, and I've used it to combat Islamophobia, sexism, and racism, to let the world know that I am a powerful, unapologetic Muslim woman, and I will not be silenced. Last year, I shared my #MeToo story with the Seattle Times and on social media to uplift the narratives of Muslim women like me who experience sexual harassment. This has been absolutely crucial in building a platform for Muslim women who have been largely left out of the #MeToo movement. Since then, I've continued to share my story in defiance of the patriarchy. I often experience sexual harassment and have even been followed home by a man because I refused to give him my number. Having access to social media platforms to share my stories, to seek support from my community, and to pursue justice, if I so choose, has made a tremendous difference for me. Net neutrality has given me a voice online when I'm not able to speak up offline. In addition, having open and free internet access has also allowed me to be connected with a global community of Muslim women through platforms like Muslim Girl. Growing up, I didn't have many people to look up to, but after having access to such platforms, it became a lot easier for me to express myself and to share my truths. We cannot allow big corporations to decide who has access to the internet and to take away our online voices. Because of Senate Bill 822, we're ensuring that the next generation of Muslim women like me have a platform to express their identity and to pursue justice. As feminist Marielle Franco said, those in power can kill 1, 2, or even 3 flowers, but they cannot stop the spring. Thanks to net neutrality, you can catch me blooming online as I continue to thrive and fight for our collective liberation.
Thank you. I'm Jessica Bartholow with the Western Center on Law and Poverty. I grew up poor here in California and have been working on anti-poverty work here in our state for the last 20 years. There is a false narrative that net neutrality is bad for poor people. That false narrative has been promulgated by the people who would profit by the end of net neutrality, by the profiteers, by the people who would make money off of ending access to free, open, and neutral internet, by people who would make money off of shuttering the voice, closing off the access to community, by people like Halima. This is unacceptable, not only because they are promoting a false truth at the benefit of profit, but also because they're doing so in the name of people who are poor, who they have not represented at the Capitol. Western Center on Law and Poverty has sponsored several pieces of legislation throughout the decade to help promote access to the internet for low-income people. None of these organizations who claim that net neutrality is in opposition to the rights and access to low-income people have ever signed on to any of those pieces of legislation. They are there under the false pretext of representing low-income people, and it's wrong. This is why Western Center on Law and Poverty was proud to join the coalition to help pass Senate Bill 822, and why we're here today to urge Governor Brown to support the bill, to sign it, and to thank our leaders, Leader Nancy Pelosi and our members of Congress, to continue to pursue this free and open internet for everyone in America. It is what we need, not only to promote community and democracy, but to protect the rights of low-income Americans. Thank you.
In addition to a great advocacy coalition, this bill enjoyed broad support among co-authors in the California legislature in both the Senate and in the Assembly. I want to give a special shout out to my joint author on the bill, Senator Kevin De Leon, as well as Assemblymember Miguel Santiago, who worked very hard to pass this through the Assembly. They're both in Southern California, could not be here today, but they're here in spirit. But we are joined by three fierce advocates for this bill who all played instrumental roles, and I want to ask them to come up. Senator Nancy Skinner, Assemblymember David Chu, we are in his district today, as well as Assemblymember Rob Bonta.
Thank you, Scott. Thank you, Leader Pelosi. Thank you, my colleagues in the legislature and the advocates who are behind me. We know that consumer protections of all types are under assault by this federal government, and not the least which was the assault on the consumer protection of free and open access to our internet, which was denied to all of us with the removal of the net neutrality rules that the FCC had enacted under President Obama. So I am so proud to be here today and to be a co-author and an advocate for this very important legislation. The advantage of the internet is the wide access that it provides to information across the globe. That access cannot be at the whim of big corporations. Net neutrality assures each and every one of us full access to the information that we want to seek without companies controlling that information and without controlling what gets fast-tracked and what information gets held back. Net neutrality makes sure that wealthy corporations don't reserve freedom of information for the highest bidder. And for that reason, I am so proud that this bill is on the governor's desk now and that everyone here came together and all of the legislature came together to support it. And well, you never want to make any assumptions. I think Governor Brown is a true responsive official reflecting the California population, and he's going to understand the importance of this bill. Thank you.
Good afternoon. I'm Rob Bonta. I serve in the California State Assembly. I represent the great cities of Oakland, Alameda, and San Leandro, proud co-author of SB822, and I just want to thank our amazing coalition who is here today. I want to thank San Francisco Firefighter President Tom O'Connor, Leader Pelosi, Assemblymember David Chu, Senator Nancy Skinner. I do want to give a shout out as well to Senators De Leon and Assemblymember Miguel Santiago, and certainly want to thank and acknowledge Senator Scott Wiener for his tremendous leadership. This has been a long road, sometimes a difficult road. During the process, we had triumphs and setbacks. We've also had near misses and comebacks, and it was a rocky road. Sometimes it moved in zigs and zags, but because of Senator Wiener's unapologetic commitment to his values, to our residents, to our state, we were able to get it across the finish line and onto the governor's desk. So I'm just really proud of Senator Wiener, of our coalition, and of the work that we did to get the bill to where we are. Make no mistake, this is California being California, doing what we do and being who we are, standing up for our state, standing up for our residents, standing up for our values. We listen to our people, and our people have been heard. They want and demand a free and open internet, and we're going to give it to them. Why do they want a free and open internet? Because it's such an indispensable part of everything we do, of our daily lives, of our livelihoods, from the state of California and local governments to the services that they provide for public safety services, first responders, healthcare, utilities, transportation, for individuals looking for a job, trying to access healthcare, running a small business. It's part of everything that we do, and it must be free and it must be open, and net neutrality is absolutely critical. It's going to help spur innovation. It's going to protect consumers. And we've had to say this so many times recently, and we say it again here: if the federal government is not going to act, or if it's going to act in a way that's not in the best interests of our people and our values, then we will act. Then we will step up and we will fight for our shared values of opportunity, equity, justice, and inclusion. And we will show that when California, the largest state in the nation, the 5th largest economy in the world, the most diverse state in the nation, can do it, then anyone can do it. All states can do it. And frankly, we invite all states to do this. This is a critical part of our democracy. It's a critical part of who we are. And I'm proud that we're at this point together on the verge of doing what we do in California, of leading, of being on the vanguard, of being on the cutting edge. Our governor has been an absolute warrior for our values of opportunity and equity, of justice and inclusion, the values that are embodied in this bill, SB822. So I will not speak for him, and anyone who's wise will not either, but I trust this governor to do what's best for our state and to stand up for our people as we have, and to yet again push back against a federal administration that does harm to our state and to our people, and stand up and champion our values. So let's send a message across the nation. Let's get SB 822 passed. Thank you to everyone here for being supportive of SB 822 and of net neutrality. Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is David Chu, and as a co-author of this important bill, let me first start by saluting the men and women who are standing behind me as defenders of net neutrality, starting, of course, with my senator, our fearless leader, Scott Wiener, our great Democratic leader, Nancy Pelosi, my co-authors, but in particular, the stakeholders, those of you who represent millions of Californians who are standing behind us. Thank you, and we salute you. I also want to take a moment and welcome all of you to my district and point out that we are just a mere few blocks away from some of the most significant internet companies in the world. Northern California has been the cradle for internet innovation. And I will tell you that about 20 years ago, during the dot-com era, a couple friends of mine and I, we started an internet company that provided tools to hundreds of causes to organize on the web. And one of the things that we said 20, 25 years ago was that the internet belongs to the people. It is a public good, and we need to treat it as such. This is why net neutrality is of paramount importance, not just to California, but to the world. And when you hear about the impact of throttling during the midst of one Mendocino fire, Think about the impact if we were to throttle our economy, if we were to throttle our freedoms, if we were to throttle our liberties. And unfortunately, that is what Donald Trump and his administration is doing to our economy, to our liberties, and to our economy. And this is why I'm proud to stand with my fellow co-authors of this bill to ask Governor Brown, we know he will do the right thing, to say that California needs to stand for net neutrality. We need to stand for our freedoms, and the rest of the country, hopefully someday soon, will follow. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I want to just acknowledge the organizations that are here today. In addition to the Western Center on Law and Poverty and the Greenlining Institute, we have the Electronic Frontier Foundation, which has been a key partner, Ernesto Falcone, Indivisible SF, Jiggy Athalingam is here, Educational Support Systems, Ruth Mary and John Cradler, Credo Action, Brandy Doyle, the Courage Campaign, and Don Fogg from Oakland Privacy. So thank you to our amazing coalition. And with that, that concludes our press conference. We're happy to answer questions, or people can speak on the side. Yes. Well, my office has been communicating regularly with the governor's staff over the entire legislative process to get any feedback and to update them. The governor usually doesn't take positions on bills before they come to him. He has not done so here, and so we are making the case to him about why he should sign the bill. Yeah.
I just may on that subject say that none of us knows what the governor will do. What we do know is that he has always been, in 1, 2, 3, 4 terms as governor, a person of the future and understands the future very well. But as when Assemblyman Lamontia was speaking and said that he didn't know what he would say, the governor used to have an expression: those who know don't speak. Those who speak don't know. So we won't go there. But I took the microphone for another purpose. I wanted to say that one of the things that's happening in Washington, D.C., and all eyes are on California in this regard, is that we have something called a Congressional Review Act, CRA. And in the United States Senate, under the leadership of Senator Markey, he got bipartisan support to pass the CRA. What the CRA does is eliminate the decision made by the FCC. It undoes those regulations. We have it under the leadership of Mike Doyle in the House now, the CRA. I think we have one Republican on the bill, but the CRA is another way for us to undo the regulation. And when you undo the unfair regulation of the Trump administration, they cannot come back with that. So hopefully we can get it done in the next weeks ahead. If not, we certainly will do it come January. But there is a bipartisanship in the Senate already to undo the unfair regulation put forth by the Trump administration. Well, I'm happy to answer that question later. Right now, I'd like to stay, because this is like the dynamism of our democracy, how we communicate and how it's open to everyone. And I want everyone, the effort that was made in the state legislature in California is historic and it's not only about history, it's about the future. So we'd like to have some more questions on that if we can. Yes, sir. Well, California, there are many things that are important about what California has done by dint of our knowledge of, as was pointed out by Assemblyman Chu, that we know this issue very well. It hits home with us. We know the possibilities. By dint of our size, any decision we make has an impact. But probably the most important one is, once we have established California as a model of a state taking action, other states may follow. And then I think you will see some of corporate America say, okay, let's have a federal law because we don't have to want to do different things in different states. So being a model, being a good example, and having others follow, I think argues in favor of a federal law. Thank you, California.
What I'd add to that is this week you saw, or last week, sorry, you saw people from all over the world join the governor at the climate summit. And what that was about is when the federal government doesn't respond appropriately, as it has not around the climate crisis, then states act, and California at the forefront of that. And I think similarly, if we are not able to get the Congressional Review Act through, or once again are stymied by the federal government, it is state action like California's net neutrality bill that other states will follow, and we will have the net neutrality we need with or without the federal government.
David, if you really help, you would have helped me. Damn it.
Any other questions? Yes. Go ahead.
Nancy, you know it. Every one of you are involved in that.
Sorry.
I'm offended that you didn't grab those Zionists when I told you. And now you're telling me you care about the
Keep talking. Keep talking.
You care about it? Put your hands off me right now. I have the right to speak my mind.
Yeah.
Nancy,
Yeah, so Ajit Pai, Donald Trump's chairman of the FCC, was speaking to a right-wing group last week and announced that he thought that that this bill was, in his view, was bad and anti-consumer, and that he thought that they would challenge it and that federal law would preempt what we're doing. We disagree with all of that. Ajit Pai and Donald Trump are the last people who should be talking about protecting consumers. Everything they do is to protect corporate America and to undermine consumers. So Ajit Pai has very, very little credibility when it comes to net neutrality. He also took it as an opportunity to make fun of California, to make fun of our effort to reduce plastic that goes into our oceans and waterways. And so it was a political diatribe. And, I think we made clear in response that, in California, we're the heart of innovation in the world. We understand what it takes to have an innovation economy, to encourage investment, to be ahead of the curve in terms of creating great new things. So we understand how to have that level playing field and how to really encourage innovation, and we know a lot more about that than Ajit Pai does. Well, the telecom, AT&T and Verizon and Comcast and so forth, they've made very clear that they're going to sue us, and they're entitled to sue. That's what having a court system is about. We think that this bill is very defensible. We think it's legal. We believe California has the power to protect broad internet access in our state, to protect our businesses and our residents from being price gouged, from being blocked from going to this website or that website. We have the power to do that. They're entitled to sue. We will defend it vigorously. And if the FCC decides to get involved, that's their prerogative. Let's be clear, the FCC does not, we believe, have the power to preempt states from protecting net neutrality. The FCC is an unelected body. The FCC issued a regulation basically saying we have no role whatsoever. The FCC said the FCC has no role whatsoever in protecting net neutrality. So they don't have any ability or any power to stop California or any other state from acting to protect net neutrality. That's our view. Any final questions? Okay, yes.
But let me just say, if they go to court, and they've taken us to court on this before, and we've won in court. But if they want to go to court, they're going to have to go to the court of public opinion. We've all acknowledged the work of the outside groups, the outside mobilization. What this means in people's lives, individually, in their expression, what it means in their job opportunities, their health, it has been said over and over. This is central to the success. Young people understand this. So if the platforms want to go to court and they want to use scare tactics, like they called seniors and said your phone bill is going to go up if this passed, Shame on them for that. And shame on Pi. He thinks he still works for one of the platforms, and that's whose business he's attending to there, not as a distinguished chair of the FCC. So again, this is the public sentiment on this subject is very strong. If they want us to prove that, they can go to the court of public opinion and find that out. I can just tell you all over the country, young people who march for safety said net neutrality is important to us. Young people who are trying to succeed in school and succeed after that know that net neutrality is so important. So they are losing a generational war at the same time. But what they're doing will contribute to the platforms are doing will contribute to the digital divide, make it worse. Come on. You know why? This is all about money. Follow the money. Where we can agree with them, we respect what they bring to our economy, these platforms. But where they try to interfere into our democracy in such a negative way, and they're complicit with the President of the United States and the Chairman of the FCC, they're very, very wrong. And that's a fight we have to take broadly to the public. What was your question? Shall we just have that conversation privately? Who wants to speak now? Well, I don't know the full scope of your question in terms of their survival, but I do know that it wasn't right for them to scare seniors about the cost of their phone bill when seniors have so much to gain from net neutrality. Well, it's abuse of our democracy across the board. But again, whatever income level we're talking about, whatever age group we're talking about, whether we're talking rural or we're talking urban, we're talking private sector, nonprofits and how they thrive. We're talking about education in every way. This is a plus, and for that, we're all very grateful to Senator Wiener for his extraordinary leadership. I'll also mention, others have been mentioned, I'll mention the Speaker, Rendon, as well, who was helpful in all of this. But it had its ups and downs. It met the challenges. It won the vote, and hopefully our very forward-looking governor will be signing the bill soon. But as I said, I don't know if he's even addressed it yet. We'll see. In terms of Senator Feinstein, we're very proud of Senator Feinstein. She protected the privacy of her constituent, and that was her responsibility. Senator Feinstein and Congresswoman Anna Eshoo first learned of this allegation, this serious allegation against Judge Kavanaugh, and they again proceeded in a way that honored a very important principle, that we must always protect the privacy of the person who has been abused. Now that that person has come forward, we want her privacy further protected so that she's not raked over the coals because she had the courage to come forward. And in addition to that, I would say that while they're going to have a hearing on Monday, I'd hope they'd have an investigation leading up to it, because you just can't have a hearing without pursuing the facts before. But many people think there should be a presumption of truth on the part of the person who's making the allegation. All we want is the truth to come forward, and there be a proper investigation to do so. People talk about something happening 30 years ago and saying it was 30 years ago. It's not, it's 30 years ago. It's a lifetime of harm to a person by a person who wants a lifetime appointment to the Supreme Court. So I commend Senator Feinstein.
Nancy, are you convinced that she'll be at that hearing? Have you heard anything?
I don't know. I hope that she will be there, but I do think that more has to be done leading up to such a hearing in terms of investigation.
What are the ramifications if she doesn't show?
Why are we talking about? We don't. We're assuming that that will take place. I can't speculate on what may or may not happen, especially because, yes. Yeah. Yeah. Well, his friend who was there, Mr. Judge, he was described as a witness to this act, so he certainly should be testifying. And what's interesting is these people have to testify under oath. I'm more interested in whether Judge Kavanaugh is going to be there, because if he does not testify truthfully under oath, he not only doesn't become a justice of the Supreme Court, he can lose his job as judge right now for perjury. But anyway, we don't know what will happen. But as you said, and I don't know if everybody heard, on Anita Hill testimony, there were 22 other witnesses who came forward. Not only do they not have any other witnesses, the Republican leadership in the United States Senate has refused to make available the paperwork. What, like 90-some% of the paperwork is still hidden from the public. If they think that there's nothing to hide, why don't they release the documentation unless they think there is something to hide? So this is all about seeking the truth. I do believe that a president has a right to make his appointments to the court. Elections have ramifications, and they may have a different opinion of Roe v. Wade and the rest. I think that he will strike down Roe v. Wade, but that is, again, a difference in philosophy. But there should be no difference on what the truth is. And that is what these hearings should be about, and we should get the fullest opportunity to hear from an appropriate number of witnesses. When Anita Hill testified, 40 members changed their vote. 40 members in the Senate changed their vote. So this is a big deal, because we're talking about the third branch of government. We're talking about a president who's elected for 4 years and a justice of the Supreme Court who could serve for 40 years, where there's great doubt as to whether he would overturn Roe v. Wade, Affordable Care Act, marriage equality, voting rights, civil rights, Brown versus the Board of Education. I think he has responded to some questions about established law, but I think he responded, but I do not think he answered adequately. So for these and other reasons, he shouldn't be approved. But in terms of this particular case, we need the truth. The FBI can't investigate?
When I spoke to Harvey Dillon this morning, chairwoman of the Republican National Committee, she said the facts are so sketchy coming from Christine Ford.
No, but you know, I don't even want to honor that. That is so ridiculous. There is an allegation. There is an allegation, and let us enlarge the issue beyond this case. I don't think they have any idea what is in store for them, because women across the country have had terrible experiences. And part of the terrible experience is that they have been ignored, that their case has not been pursued with respect, that they have been subjected to being raked over the coals for coming forward. And I think it's very important for whatever this is to be resolved. Have the investigation. Find out the truth. That's why you have an investigation, if the details are sketchy. But the allegation is clear. The person has come forward. They changed their tune. Before it was, well, no big deal. She hasn't come forward. She's come forward. Big deal.
Thank you very much.